Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, Force here, and today we'll be checking out Zack Zero. This is a platformer set in a 3D environment that was designed to play like old school 2D games. This was developed by Crocodile Entertainment and actually first launched on PSN back in January of 2012. It has just now come to the PC, and here in this video I'll be showing you some gameplay from the PC version, as well as giving you my initial thoughts and impressions, talking about both the good and the bad. And there is definitely some bad and some things I don't like about this game, but there's also some qualities that I find redeeming. Before we jump into any of that though, let's talk about what the game is and how it is played. So it is a 2D platformer and side scroller as well. All I've really got the option of doing is moving from left to right. Now we're set in a 3D environment, and you can see we've got enemies moving from the foreground and the background towards me. But I at no point have the option of deciding, do I want to push into the foreground or background. I can only move directly on this 2D plane, and that is it. Now depending on, creatures within the environment that I can interact with, like attack with, my attacks will sway from the background to foreground, and during some platforming parts I will as well, but again, it's nothing that you have direct control over. Left to right is really all you're capable of moving within this game. In terms of the combat, it is quite simplistic, but there's a few interesting hooks. So far, all you've been seeing me doing is attacking in this one basic form. I've got this range attack here, and then if I go up close, I can hit the same button for a melee attack. However, this is just one of 4 forms. I've also got the ability to switch between fire, ice, and rock. And each one of these forms have their own unique abilities and attacks. So fire launches this little fireball here. Ice will launch this little tornado of freezing, which will actually encase certain enemies in a ice cube, and I'll try to get that done over here for you guys. There we go, so I'm going to do that. And then in rock form here, I can punch like a mofo and really hurt people. And an interesting thing about these various forms too, you're going to notice here that it's not just my capabilities, but also the speed's different. Like my fire speed, I've got this little sprint here. In the ice form, I also have the ability to slow down time. In the fire form, I've got this little engulfing of flame that I can do in an area around me. And then in rock form, you've got the ability to smash the ground. You also move much slower in rock form, and you can't jump either. So that is one of these things. That's one of those things about this game that I found actually quite interesting. And let me, let's just continue to go along and talk about the combat. I want to hold off my judgments of the game until we get a little bit further down. I just really want to focus on talking about the combat. So I've got my rock form, and with my rock form I can do things like smash the ground, and then certain areas of the ground, these are pre-designated. I can't do that to everything. Let me just show you that up here. So if I were to say go to another part of this bridge and try to smash through, I can't. There are specific areas within the environment that you are meant to smash through, and those areas you will do so in rock form. You also need to switch to rock form to engage in heavy interactions with the environment, such as moving these large levers or punching through things as well. So that's a pretty interesting thing about rock form. The fire form here, beyond that little fireball, so I've got increased speed, which will use up my meter at the top. That's basically your energy for using your special abilities in each of your forms. So sprinting will use that up. Casting my fireball. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the area of engulf flame. But casting my fireball will use that up as well. And then, switching into slow-mo time will use it up. Casting my freezing tornado will use it up, and smashing the ground will also use it up. So all that energy is used by doing special abilities in each one of these forms. Let's keep continuing to move here through the environment. Now in the fire form, I also have the ability to do some gliding, which we can do like this right here, and that's going to use up some of that energy. Unfortunately, what the heck? Was I really off key there? So I have, there we go, able to do that there, wonderful. I can also in fire form move around, in rock form I can also move around objects like this. And this is one of those few instances where I actually have the ability of moving slightly to the foreground and background. But at this point here, I actually can't move. I'm trying to move it up and down, but I can only, once again, move it from left to right. So sort of stuck in this predefined movement pattern, and that's just how this game is designed. And once again, it is designed, it's meant to invoke the feeling of those old school 2D games. So I can't smash through that, so let's keep on moving in this direction. This is a perfect instance of where we want to use our slow time here in the ice form. And then we can switch it. And then to make sure that we get all this, we can do it again after he fires. We're going to go ahead and go. And then move along wonderfully. Beautiful. I can't do that, but I will need to do this again. There we go. And we will just move along. And we've got some enemies over here. So again, I am just moving left to right, but if I walk down this way, it'll drop me down to that area. And before I actually do that, why don't I just launch a couple fireballs for the lulz? As soon as I use up all of my energy, I automatically switch to my base form, which is this one right here. The form that you saw me using at the start of the video. And beyond these things that I've shown you so far, the only other real aspect in combat is the ability to do this little dodge roll, which I do by holding down left or right arrow and down. Now I should preface this by saying, you know, this game originally was made for the PlayStation 3. It came through PSN, and it's designed to be played with a controller. There's really no question about that. This is a game that is fully meant to be played with a controller, and obviously you can do that on a PC as well, but I am playing it with mouse and keyboard just to tell you guys what that experience is like. And, you know, it's been okay. It hasn't been terrible. It's definitely been manageable so far. This game has collectibles, these little objects right here. You'll find them as you make your way throughout the levels, and there are so many in each one of the levels. Speaking of levels, there are 10 of them within this game, at least that appears to be the case based on the level select screen at the start of the main menu. And I am currently, this level that you're looking at right now is level 3, which has taken me, I would say, about an hour going relatively slow to get to this point. And I have finished through level 3, so I guess it really only took me about 45 minutes to get to this point, because I think going through level 3 initially took me 15 to 20 minutes. Alright, so we have switched that lever, which is going to open up another part of the level for us to progress, so we will continue to move through here. And that is basically it for the combat. So, you know, it's got some interesting mechanics to it, but unfortunately it's a wee bit simplistic. It's quite simple. In fact, one of my major complaints about this game, and I guess we could just get into that now, is how really basic the combat is. So I've got no control. Just like I can only move to the left and right, I can only attack to the left and right. I've got no direct control over where my attacks go and who they hit. It's basically, if there's enemies in front of me, I attack in front of me. If there's enemies behind me, I attack behind me. And my attacks just hit who they hit. I can't direct those attacks to target specific enemies. Now the combat hasn't seemed terribly difficult, so that would be necessary, but it would be nice to have some sort of control, because otherwise it just makes the combat seem, well, just really simple. And it is. It's just, the combat is just really, really simple. It's really basic. And again, we've got these different options, and we can manipulate things, like I can slow down time here, woohoo, that's fun, and I could like throw a tornado, but right now he's in the background, and to attack him, I just need to make sure I'm attacking in the right direction, but that is it. You've got no direct control over your projectiles. None whatsoever. And then a lot of times, these enemy encounters, so far in the game at least, have been as simple as avoid major telegraph attack, turn around, and hit the opponent. So there's going to be major telegraphed attack. I avoid that, I turn around, and I just launch, and there you go. So yeah, the combat is really, really basic, it's really simplistic, and it's really quite easy. I haven't really found much of a challenge. You do die pretty quickly, but it's also relatively easy to avoid getting hit. In fact, I think the only time I've lost all of my lives and had to sort of restart was during one of the boss fights, which we'll be coming up to. And maybe I'll die again there, but beyond that, the game's been quite simplistic so far. Now, to be fair, this is from me. These are first impressions, so maybe the game gets a lot more difficult later on, but the fact of the matter is that I've made it through 3 of the game's 10 levels, and I haven't really met a challenge so far, with the exception of one boss fight. So leaves you to wonder, you know, how long are you going to have to wait for this game to become a challenge? How long are you going to have to wait for it to become difficult? And will it actually ever become that? It's hard to say, to be honest. But first impression-wise, the game has seemed quite easy. All I did there was spam attacks. I did not direct it at anyone at any point. Nothing like that happened, not even close. Alright, so we got a little gate over here that we're going to have to try to get past. So again, as you can see, just moving left and right, but because if I were to jump, I would go up to that level. But if I were to just stay on the ground, then I'm going to move down to this level as well. Launch a few fireballs, take those guys out, and then we will be presented with another subterranean area right over here. So some of the things that I do like, I like the idea behind the different forms of his suit. And I like, you know, the fact that I've got the ability to speed up here and slow down time with the other suit. All those things I really enjoy. The unfortunate part is, though, that with the combat seeming so simplistic, the only part of this outfit that really ever becomes interesting is the platforming puzzle-solving areas, like this, what you just saw me do right there. Slowing down time to make it past those, that's kind of interesting. But combat-wise, it really hasn't been at all engaging for me in the time that I've spent with the game so far. I haven't found it at all interesting. There's minor puzzle solving. Here's a great example of that. So we're presented with an order for these torches to be lit, and then we must repeat that order. So I believe it went over here first, and then over here. No, I think it went this one first. You see, already failing. Was it this one first? Yes, and then that one. And then it was this one. And then this one. I love how I say, oh, this is so easy. Oh, I forgot the order. I'm an idiot. And then we will go over to this one. Wonderful. So we solved the puzzle. Fantastic. That is going to lift up that gate, allow us to flip the switch, which will then allow us to move on to the next part of this level. So I like the idea of the suits. I find that interesting. And again, like I just mentioned, unfortunately it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal in combat, but for like the puzzle solving and things like this, it's kind of neat, you know? And I really like the visual style. Like, I like the artistic direction that this game's decided to go in. Just both stylistically and what they've actually implemented in terms of graphics and textures and the general environment. I just think it looks neat. I think it's got a great aesthetic. I just wish I wish it was more substantial of a platformer, because I think they have a really good base here. I think they've got some fantastic ideas with the outfit and everything that they're doing, you know, with the suit and the different capabilities that it had. But unfortunately, it seems to just fall a little bit short in the combat portion of things. Which, because there is a fair amount of combat, at least 50% of the time, I would say you're engaging in some form of combat, it would have been nice if that was a little bit more interesting. So we've got some platforming coming up here. There's also some guys over there. A little bird thing that I can engage with. And here we go. This is a part that I really liked. I got this little platforming. It's just all about timing your movement here, and I can use my glide to my advantage. Now these enemies, again, I've got no choice over aiming my attacks. I just need to attack to the right, and that's going to aim at that guy automatically. And you can see the second attack to the right ended up going towards that guy over there. I mean, just the mere fact that that is automated for you, I think that makes the combat unnecessarily more simplistic than it needs to be. And you know, when I first looked at this game, when I first started playing it, my immediate thought was, oh, this is a game, you know, targeted for a younger audience, right? The storyline, it's this comic book storyline, and the narrative is a little strange, to be honest with you. It kind of feels like a Saturday morning cartoon, if I were to be completely honest about it. And yeah, I just immediately thought, okay, so this is a game meant for a younger audience. But after doing some research, it doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. They've just got some really damn it. Fail. They've just got some really, really simplistic combat and you know, a Saturday morning cartoon feeling storyline. And again, it's funny because I feel like if they did something as simple as not automate the direction of attacks, then I think the game could have been a little more interesting. But I guess at the same time, if this game is only played on that 2D platform, then maybe that's something they felt like they didn't want to do, because they're trying to invoke the old school 2D games in which you didn't necessarily have direct control over your attacks. You were just attacking left and right, but this is just done in that 3D environment. Here we go, we've got a boss fight, and this is the boss fight that the first time I pretty much met my first real death. And time to kill him. So he's gonna do that. I trigger an attack by going underneath him, and he's also got this thing here, but this is pretty easy to, okay, then, well, that part was fail. So then he stuns himself, basically. I go under, I force him to jump, he stuns himself, and then we just do that, just like this. And it's that's the boss fight. That's basically it. So it's unfortunate. I really feel like, you know, they started with something that could definitely be worked with and could have turned out to be a pretty cool platformer. And while I like the artistic style, I like the world that they've built, the way it looks. Not a big fan of the combat, and the game just seems, maybe it was in fact targeted for a younger audience. But I don't really think that it's necessarily a game for me. Whether or not it's a game for you, well, it's of course up to you. A couple more phases here in this boss fight. But that's basically it. You guys have a good idea of what Zack Zero is all about right now. So why don't we go ahead and wrap it up. Alright, let's talk about some of the features of this game. It's got 10 levels total. You're looking at the 3rd level, which once we kill this boss, it will be all done. There's 30 different types of enemies with 5 unique boss battles. 20 levels of progression, although it's not anything spectacular. Let me see if I can show you that here. So I can hit I. There's 20 character levels total. I am level 8 right now. And every time you get a level, you basically get increases to a set amount of stats for each one of these modes: regular, fire, rock, and ice mode. I have never at one point chosen which ones get leveled up. It looks like every level you get increases automatically to each of your attacks and each one of your suit forms, and that's it. That's the progression. There's no agency from the player themselves. I had no decision making. There was no decision making into terms of what got increased every level. It just happened automatically. So yeah. Nothing, not missing much in terms of the customization. Again, unfortunately, it just feels a little lacking, you know? I think they could have just gone a little bit further and this game could have been a lot better. It's also fair to note, though, this is a very small indie developer, and I know that a lot of gamers don't look at that as an excuse. They would say, well, there's other small indie developers that make games that I like, and I guess that'd be a fair statement, but just something to keep in mind. It's a small indie game, so if it feels a little lacking compared to larger games, well, kind of makes sense, I suppose. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. This has been Force checking out Zack Zero, a platformer set in a 3D environment meant to invoke the feeling of old school 2D games. It is available on Steam today for $9.99. If this is a game that you would like, I guess you can give it a look. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. And as always, keep watching and keep owning. Nice.